Check us out to hear the latest on life in the volunteer state. Yvonnca and her guests discuss everything from life, love, and business with a Tennessee flair.
It's a Tennessee thing!
Always relatable, always relevant, and always a good time. This is Talking Tennessee, and now your host, Yvonnca.
This episode is brought to you by the Landes team, your go-to real estate family in East Tennessee. If you are looking to buy or sell, we are the ones you should call. Give us a call at 865-660-1186 or check out our website at YvoncaSellsRealEstate.com. That's Yvonnca, YVONNCA, sellsrealestate.com.
Welcome back to Talking Tennessee with Yvonnca. I am your host, and I am here with a dear friend that is going to wow the whole show. Her name is Phyllis Nichols. Welcome to Talking Tennessee.
Thank you, Yvonnca, for inviting me to be with you. You've got a beautiful track record of talking with some very important people on some very important topics.
Thank you so much. Well, let me just say this to you viewers. I have admired this person from afar for so many years. I met her some years ago, but we were at a gala, and so when you're at a gala and you're all dressed up and you're meeting people and all that kind of thing, you never get to really stop and talk to the person as long. So I had to have this person on. I've been wanting it for 2 years. I will say that, but I just needed God to tell me when to go, because I knew that this was going to be a powerful, uplifting interview conversation that everybody needs to hear, but it needed to be the right time. So I thank you for coming.
Oh, well, I am pleased to be here. Very honored to be here.
Please tell me who Phyllis Nichols is.
I think if you'd asked me that question 2 or 3 or 5 years ago, my answer would have been a little different. But in retrospect now, where I am in my life now, being retired for 2 years, I've had time to reflect and understand who I really am. Okay. So I would say that, first of all, I define myself as a Christian. Okay. I am a wife. Mm-hmm. I am a mother. Okay. I am a grandmother. I am a sister and an auntie to a bunch of adults.
Okay.
And so what I've said there is, in my relationship with Christ, that is the center of who I am and how I try to live. The most important thing of who I am is my family.
Yes.
It is my family. What I do and how I interact and how I go about the world now all focuses on faith and family. But I'm also, in addition to that,
okay.
I'm a community advocate. The work that I did for 40 years has not gone away. I tend to approach it in a different way. Mm-hmm. I tend to allocate my time. I am a civil rights advocate. Yes. I am a public school advocate. I am a women's rights advocate. I'm a human rights advocate. And so those things were part of what I did in my professional career, and it helped to mold the personality that I have and the commitment that I have. I just go about engaging and supporting those things in a different way now.
Well, let me just say this. There's so many women in the world that in 40s and 50s and above that sit and think, okay, who am I? Mm-hmm. And I tell women all the time, you find out who you are multiple times.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
You change. The woman I was in my 20s, mm-hmm. I'm in my 50s now. I'm a totally different woman. Mm-hmm. So I can relate to what you're saying. Mm-hmm. There's so many different layers to you. Right. And I can even understand, even retiring. Let me first say, how long did you serve as the CEO of the Urban League?
Almost 30 years. But I had a career in education and private business before then, and long story is that I learned so many things which helped me to be successful as the CEO of the Urban League. But I spent and was committed nearly 30 years of my life to the Knoxville area Urban League and the Urban League movement.
What made you want to go to work at the Urban League?
At the time, and this was like in 1994, and so people can figure out my age or whatever. I'm old.
She doesn't look, no, she's not.
But at that time, I was part of a program with the College of Social Work at UT, who helped the Urban League to develop a program. And under that time, it was called Welfare Work, which I hate that name, but was during the Clinton administration, and that's what they called it. And the premise of the program was to help women who are out of the workforce get into the workforce and to become self-sufficient. Well, that sounds really nice, doesn't it?
Right.
But if you've never had a job and you've got small kids at home and you lack transportation and health care and you lack the necessities to be able to go to work, how do you do it? And you don't have marketable skills. So that program was to help women transition. The Urban League was doing the workforce development programs, administrative assistants, CNAs, doing all things to get people in, but also to show you a career path. But if you were going back to work as a mother with small kids, and you were taking care of them at home, one of the things that the program did was help develop collaborations so that you would know who would be the child care provider and help you connect to that. Also, if you don't have transportation, how are you going to get to the job? If you have never ridden the bus, and this was 94, how do you access that? And also, most jobs back in the day, you had to have a chest x-ray, you had to have a tuberculosis test, you had to, things that now we think about. You had a lot of things before you went to work. And so the Urban League helped to coordinate all that. What made me change my mind about it is that one day a young lady walked in, and I was there, had my manila folder and all stuff, because we were going to do her intake and sign her up. And she got up after saying some few choice words to me. She got up and left. And so the person that was assigned as my assistant to help do all the paperwork, she went running down the hall and she says, "You can't say that to Miss Nichols. You can't say that." She said, "I don't know who that lady is, and she doesn't know who I am. I can say whatever I want."
Okay.
It was a reckoning for me.
I bet it was.
Because I didn't know her.
You did?
Her name was Evelyn. I didn't know Evelyn. I just saw her as the way that so many times we treat people is we see them as a file and a number. And it transformed me because I saw this woman who really wanted to improve her situation, but I hadn't given her the dignity that she deserved. Long story short.
Let me say this. Most people would never admit that.
Oh,
that's commendable for you to admit. I didn't treat her in a certain way.
Right.
Keep going.
So one of the things that we did is, long story short, we brought Evelyn back. Evelyn was like a teacher to me because I learned a whole lot of stuff about riding the bus and doing the things that I never knew. But and Evelyn was a difficult placement. She took me through the storm and the fire and everything. But I told her, I said, "Evelyn, one day you're gonna get a job, and girlfriend, you're gonna buy my lunch. And you're going to give me that first dollar," because I had bought many lunches for her.
Okay.
And so she came in, and that happened. But what I did, and you say what people wouldn't admit to that story has been my guidepost. I hung Evelyn's pay stub and her dollar, which she was supposed to buy me a hot dog. I said I'd rather have the dollar.
Yes.
And I hung that in my office, not as a show piece, but to remind me who I was and why I was there, but also the people who worked for me, the people who worked with us, the people in the collaboration. Evelyn was the story of why we were there and why we worked so hard to help people, because we had taken her from this one end of the spectrum to another. Evelyn did well, and for 3 or 4 years she would always drop in and let me know. But every person that we would help at the Urban League, I learned a lesson from them. People would say, why do you do it? Because nobody is more excited when they got a job than me. Because I knew what the future would mean for them, both for their self-esteem and for their family and for the future.
I totally agree.
We did a lot of work with preparing people to be a homeowner. Well, that's a lot of work when you're starting with somebody from ground zero to prepare them to be credit worthy, mortgage ready, all that. And to celebrate when they close on their first home, it feels like I'm moving in.
Yes.
I celebrate. But we also celebrated when people became business owners, because people would come in with a dream of wanting to own a restaurant. And so we'd have to give them the hard lesson of, just because you can cook doesn't mean you can own a restaurant.
I agree.
These are the things that, in addition to a skill, you have to know.
You have to know how to run a business.
But I believe that everything that we did started with education. So understanding that education was the basis for being able to move people forward, we focused more on going into schools and helping folks. Let's try to prepare people for a lifetime of self-sufficiency,
and success.
And success.
Whatever that looks like to them.
Absolutely. But also being able to understand that dreams can come true, not because you wish it to be, but because you plan and work for it to be. And what we quickly understood is that folks want to be successful.
Yes.
They just don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
And it is incumbent on those who have made it and have struggled to understand the struggle and to help others to achieve their goals and dreams as well. So that's how I got there.
I think if you become successful, I think that it's your duty to share, because you just sharing your story could give them the fight to see, okay, if they accomplish that, I can accomplish my success.
Right.
It may not look the same, but I can, make my family proud, make my kids proud, make my spouse proud, make myself proud. But I think a lot of times that people forget that part. And I think you've done a great job in showing with your walk of really devoting your time to your community, letting people talk to you and ask you questions and say, how do you do this? I think when you humble yourself and allow yourself to see other people's situations and not measure them up and just see the person for who they are and just try to help someone, it makes a huge difference in someone's life. And I think that God wants us to be able to help the body of Christ, that be a vessel for Him, pour into people. And I think you've done a great job in that. How has your faith shaped the person you are today in the way you lead?
Oh, my faith has helped me to get through some really hard times. People have a tendency to look at someone where they are presently and they think, oh, they had it easy, or this, or how could they know? Because we don't all talk about our struggles. When I inherited, I called it the big seat at the Urban League. The Urban League had no money, you know, very few staff people. But what I was privileged to know, because I traveled the country and saw what a successful, thriving, contributing Urban League affiliate does, I knew we could do that in Knoxville. And I used that as my inspiration. Was it easy? Absolutely not. There were days that, you know, I would go home and I would just cry. I thought, what am I doing? I feel like I'm, you know. Well, you know, I thought, well, I knew why I was there. I knew that I was led to be there because, you know, I had been a public school teacher. If I wanted to go back to teaching, I still had a certificate and I could have done that. But I chose not to take that. I had another call in which some days I understood fully, and let me say this. I always understood it. I always knew that I had to ask for help. I had to ask for divine help, but I had to ask for brotherly and sisterly help. I had to know that I was not put there to do it by myself. And some people think that they need to be successful, it's all about me. It's never all about you. You'll never be successful on your own. You can have some measurement of success doing some things.
But you have to connect.
But you have to connect. But you also need to understand is, I think why we are commissioned to serve is that we build community by serving together.
Yes, I agree.
And we achieve more serving together. And asking for help is a sign that you are confident to ask. It is not a sign of weakness. We used to say that a lot. We had a program at the Urban League where we taught soft skills. Soft skills mean you show up to work on time, you do this, you do that, everything. But also, soft skills does more to get you to believe in yourself. You can do this. Yeah, it's going to be hard, but nothing's easy. Nothing is easy. You make it look easy.
If it's worth having, you got to know it's going to be working there. And I think that people don't open up enough to say, you know, when I was paying my dues and whatever that was, it wasn't easy, you know, and I agree with you when you say, you know, some people will look at you now and they're like, oh wow, she's accomplished so many things, but they haven't realized there was time you took away from your family.
Absolutely.
There was time that you took away from yourself, you know, but you wanted to do for the greater good, so you did that sacrifice. And I try to keep in my mind, 2 is better than 1. And if you keep that in your mind, 2 is better than 1, then you don't fall in that it's all about me. It's what I want. You know, 2 is better than 1. If you have somebody, if you build off of 2, you can go to 3, you can go to 4, that type thing. And I'll say this, one of the people that recommended you for my podcast, y'all have something alike. Y'all are connectors. Tammy White and you are connectors. Y'all connect people and you enjoy it. You enjoy every person that has, I want you to know, several people said, we want to hear her on your podcast, okay? And so, but every person that said that was one of the biggest things that they talked about, is how you connected people and how you have allowed people to grow, and you've shown them how to grow. You've given them the tools to grow, that type thing. So my next question is,
I want to finish the question that you asked, because you said, how's your faith influenced you?
Okay.
This is one of my guideposts. The Lord didn't give me the opportunity or open a door for me to go in and close it behind me. He gave me the opportunity to be in that room so that I can see how I can bring others into the room, how I can make sure that the door stays open. And so that has been one of the things. Every time I was in a new situation, and many times I would be the only female and most certainly the only African American in the room, my thought was, how do I put more seats at the table, even if we got to bring our own chairs?
Yes.
How do I bring more people into this? And so I would go to meetings, leaving as part of my strategy, who am I going to bring with me next? But I would also say to them, okay, Yvonnca, I'm bringing you over here, and your payback is to bring someone else.
But let me ask you this. I'm glad you're bringing that up. Of your opinion, why do you think some people think that, is it an insecurity in anybody that they feel like they can't bring someone in? You know, that type thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like you, okay? I heard a gentleman say this one day, and I said to him, I said, I don't agree. He said, I want to own the table. That's what he said to me. And I said, what does that mean? You want to own the table? I want to own the whole table. And I said, so then you want it all your way, correct? And he was like, I just want to show my people that. And I said, but wouldn't you like to bring people in and show how you help form that table of leaders,
Mm-hmm.
that those leaders band together and they collaborate together for the greater good? He said, well, I didn't think about it that way. I said, it's not about owning the table. It's about helping people sit at the table. And so I'm asking you that question. What is it? Is it an insecurity that some people think that they don't want to bring someone to the table? Because of when I researched you brought a lot of people to the table.
Thank you. Then I accomplished something that I was intentional about, is to open up the doors further. I think that it is not as simplistic as saying somebody's insecure.
Okay.
I think that historically, depending on where people are, we've only had one seat at the table.
That's true.
So am I going to give up my seat for you? Okay.
That's a good point.
And insecurity does have, I finally got in. I've got to make sure that I stay. I never thought about it in that way.
So what would you tell people of today? How to handle that insecurity and still.
What really happens is this: when you bring others into the room, the others recognize that you brought others into the room. So they see you as more as a collaborator, and everybody wants to enlarge their tent. Everybody wants to enlarge their territory.
I agree.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you quickly know who the person is in the room that's the connector. Or
I agree.
when I'm in a committee and we start talking about who's going to do what, the person that goes, well, I know Joe, I know Joanne, I know Sarah, that's the person that I'm going to focus with, because they have a network that is going to move our agenda forward. But the person who sits there, and they'll say, well, I can do that. You can only do so much. But you've already said Joe and Joanne and and you. That's four.
Point.
There's four that you have already identified that could help us. Yes, I want you to help. But so expanding your territory, expanding your network, that's beneficial for all. And that was my thing, to bring folks in. So yes, people are insecure. Mm-hmm. But I think that the more that you
collaborate.
Right. But it's really the more that you serve, the more you want to serve.
I agree. My next question to you is, with living each day, you said you live each day with an attitude of gratitude. Mm-hmm. Please explain to the viewers, what do you mean by that?
So very quickly, I grew up in Kingsport. Both of my parents were educators. Small town, mm-hmm. Small house.
Okay.
There were 8 of us, mm-hmm. in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home.
Really?
That we were very privileged to have. because, there was redlining, there was all these kind of things. We're talking in the early 60s, and for my family to be able to buy a home was quite the privilege. Now, we were very happy, but it was crowded. And so my parents taught us that, the girls do this, da 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 da. So it was very, very regimented.
Okay.
But I knew that my parents worked hard for us to have all that we needed. Not all that we wanted, all that we needed. And I was blessed with family, and when I say that, my relatives, my uncles, my aunts, and all those, everybody was supportive of the kids for education.
That's how I grew up.
But also I knew this. I knew even as a child that we had opportunities that a lot of my friends didn't have.
Right.
We had a car, and we could go and visit our grandparents on the weekend. And this was something, some things happen in your life you never forget. My mother would drive to the grocery store, and our job was to be standing at the door, helping her carry those in and put the things away. One of my friends that I grew up with, her mother would walk to town, go to the grocery store, and take a cab back to the projects where she lived. I remember that, but I also remember my mother calling the woman's name and says, because she was at the store, she would take her home with her groceries, so she went there. As a kid, I knew that we had something that not everybody had. But when we were in school, her daughter was one of my best friends. I mean, when we got to school, we were thick as thieves.
Yes.
So I knew that our existence was different. So I knew that I had opportunity. I grew up with some people who wanted to get a job at Tennessee Eastland or at the press or whatever, and my dad said, "You'll get an education. There's that if you do that, that's because you made a choice to after you got an education about what else you can do." And so I saw people who graduated from high school 2 weeks later went and worked at the plant, but they made a good living. So I'm not making that, but they didn't know what else what else life could have offered them,
Right.
because they only saw what they
Go
saw.
to the plant.
And so what I knew is that I saw opportunities that a lot of people who were just like me, who grew up like me, didn't know that opportunities existed. They didn't know it was possible for them to do that. I grew up in a community where there were absolutely no black doctors, no black dentists, no black attorneys. So our role models were teachers and preachers and nurses. So did it exist in when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s that I could be any of those? Yes, because our dad made us read books about people who did that, but not everybody had that opportunity.
Yes.
So I knew early on that education, access, and opportunity held a key for people, and so it has been a guidepost for me throughout my life, knowing that people need to have those things.
My grandfather always told us education is key.
Oh, absolutely.
It's something that no one can take away from you. And what I was saying was speaking to me is that I don't remember a time in my childhood that if I wanted to go to my grandmother's house, my mother would put us in the car and we'd go to my grandmother's house. That type of thing. Did we do a lot of walking? As kids, yes, in the community we did that, but that was more recreational. That wasn't because we had to. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's why I say you speaking of because it made me just think about, I never had to worry about if I want to go to my grandma's house, okay, where we're going, that type of thing. And I think a lot of people don't think about that. We had everything that we needed. We didn't have everything we wanted.
That's right.
I can say that my mom and dad worked really hard because my mother, when I was born, my mother was living in the projects, and my mother always told us that this is our start, but it's not our end.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother said, I will get you out of here. And my mother did.
Mm-hmm.
And so even now, I ride by that unit
Mm-hmm.
once a year,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just to remember the good times, because we didn't know any different. It was just home to us, you know, that type thing. But my mother, she worked in a factory at the time, and my mother said, I'm going to get a better job, and she did. And her and my dad both worked out at the plant, you know, and worked 30, 40 years out there and did great. But there was a lot of kids in my neighborhood that I can honestly say the same thing you're saying, is that was less fortunate. You know, and my mother always made sure that we were all fed. If you came to my house, it didn't matter what. My mother made everybody, you know, her kid, you know, that type of thing. And so gratitude, you have to remember that is showing gratitude of even things that you didn't have to go through. You know, I don't think people stop and think about that. You know, and I see that in your life, you have got to see kindness. You wanted, and so you wanted to instill kindness in people. Can you speak about the world seems so divided right now for whatever reason? Okay, for whatever reason. And can you speak on just being kind and how you have put that in your professional life and your private life?
So growing up in Kingsport, we did two things. We went to school and we went to church.
That's us.
Okay, we went to school and went to church. So we learned a lot of how to live from, and our social activities were at church as well. And so we didn't just hear about sharing. We were taught sharing. We didn't just hear, if you don't have something good to say, don't say anything. We had people who demonstrated us to say the kind things. And also we had people who said to us, be kind to those that don't have, because they may be angels unaware. Somebody said that to me in Sunday school when I was maybe 5 years old, and I was always looking for the angels. They said, you must be kind to everyone because there may be angels unaware. So I took that as literal. And I would look at, like growing up, I would look and I'd go, I know that person is an angel because they smiled at people. They did that. So I know it sounds a little Pollyannish, but I would say this. Growing up, my growing up was not easy in a community where you had maybe 6 to 8% African American people. So a lot of mean things were said to us as kids. And our parents says, but you don't respond because somebody else will take care of that for you. And so we would smile. Now, I'm not saying I was Miss Goody Two-Shoes because, you know, when I went through the teenage years, I was the fighter in our family. You said something to my little sisters.
It's going to be a problem.
It's going to be a problem. And so that fight has always been in me. Have I learned to control it? Yeah, and the fact that I'm older and tired, you know, helps you. But the fighter in me helped me to direct my care for the least of these. I think that we are, at the heart of me, I think that I was put on this earth to serve. What I was blessed to be able to do was to learn how through, you know, giving people tools, making introductions, opening doors or whatever. But the heart of me is I am still, you know, a servant. Now they've dressed it up into being a servant leader.
Yes.
That means I have to open the door for somebody else and show them, you know, how to open the door for somebody else, or be kind to somebody, demonstrate how to be kind. You know, my parents were kind when they didn't have it to be kind. Like you say, people would come by or whatever in a small community. My mother always had, you don't eat you don't eat the last piece of bread because somebody might come on.
Yes.
And people would.
We grew up a lot alike.
Yes, we did, and we've lost that for a lot of reasons, which we don't have to. We can lose some of the actions, but we don't have to lose the intent. You know, and so we still need to feed the poor.
You still
need to house the homeless.
I miss that part of our childhood because, like in our house, we feed everybody. Okay, I raised my kids. Me and my husband built a family around the same way we were brought up, and we feed everybody. You know, and we feed everybody the same. Okay, I'm not going to eat a steak in front of everybody and let everybody else eat hot dogs. Yvonnca's not doing that, okay? My grandfather always said, you know, when you feed somebody, be eating the same thing they eat. You know, that type thing. And so, that's one way to keep yourself humble. That's one way to realize that you're not better than anybody. And I was also raised as, you know what, someone's pants may cost more than yours, but they're still pants. You know, that type thing. And so that's what keeps me humble, and that keeps me to be, you know, as you said, is dressed up now as servant leader, but a lot of things we learned in the church, you know, because, you know, my grandmother was on the usher committee, and she made sure that we knew how to behave in church. And that fire that you're talking about, I was the spitfire just like you was. But I think that fire really helped us in our professional world because it made us fight for people that did not have a voice and people that didn't have the strength to speak up for themselves. You know, because Urban League alone, you've done so many things in your career. Urban League alone, you know, you have made rooms for people to come in and just really learn how to be better in their self. You wasn't, what's the word for it? You were not getting anything out of it besides saying, I helped that next person. Viewers, I truly think that we need to go in a 2-part conversation with Miss Phyllis because she's dropping so many nuggets that I think that everyone needs to hear them, even me. You know, she's blessed me already, and I want to keep blessing you. So tune in next week.
Thanks for listening to Talkin' Tennessee with Yvonnca. Watch out for our weekly episodes from the First Family of Real Estate and check us out on the web, www.yvoncasalesrealestate.com. See our videos on Yvonca's YouTube channel or find us on Facebook under Yvonnca Landes and Twitter @Yvonnca Landes. And don't forget to tell a friend about us. Until next time, Yvonnca signing off.